today's video is about a very difficult topic. I think only those who have experienced something similar can truly understand what it is. To experience situations as extreme as the ones you're going to hear about in this video. A family was attacked and a life was completely consumed, still hoping to see a light to escape from that hell. I don't know if possessions are real or just simple errors in our brain, but what I do know is that there are certain situations that can't be explained. I look forward to your comment at the end to know what you think about today's case. It's very hard for me to talk about this. It's something that, even though I lived with it for a big part of my life, I never got used to it, or rather, my family could never get used to it. Just by telling you that we decided to move to another country to try to solve it, I think that says it all. There were sleepless nights, whole days of crying and screaming, fights between my parents, hospitals, problems at school, in the Iglesias neighborhood, psychiatrists. Anyway, it was many years that we were literally in hell. My name is Andres, and I'm going to tell you what my family and I experienced. Specifically, the one who had the worst time and is still struggling is my younger brother. We're from Moron, a town in Buenos Aires. I was born in '87. You could say my childhood was totally normal, just like any other kids. When my brother was born, in '93, the family changed a bit. Financial problems arose, causing my parents to argue for reasons unimportant to discuss here. Luckily, in '97, my old man was able to change jobs and we got back on our feet. Everything was getting back to normal. We started going on vacation again, we went to the movies every now and then, and the house started to feel like it used to. Before telling you this, I talked to my mom to go over some details I might have forgotten and to ask for her permission. Of course, since in my family it's something really sensitive and practically no one knows about it outside of our closest family circle. We believe that everything started when my brother turned 9 in 2002. Although my mom thinks that before this, there were already some signs that we didn't pay attention to. On his birthday, my mom was getting things ready for the celebration. In the afternoon, when some neighborhood kids and family were visiting, I heard a scream. My brother liked to play in the garage with his little cars. He drew a racetrack on the floor with chalk. When my mom went into the garage, she found my brother in a corner against the wall, really shaken and crying. She asked what was wrong and approached him. My brother didn't react or look at her. She told me he was staring at a fixed point off to the side as if someone was standing there. At that moment, no one imagined that he was actually seeing something and that something would stay with him until today. My mom asked him what had happened. She thought maybe there was a spider or a rat, but he just cried and kept looking at that exact spot. She picked him up and carried him to the kitchen, sat him at the table and tried to calm him down, but he wouldn't stop crying. My mom didn't understand what was wrong with him. When I heard the screams at home, I went to see what was happening. And I swear he was terrified. There was no way to get him to talk. It was only after a while that he calmed down and told my mom what he had seen. He was on the floor playing with his cars, like always, and he heard someone greet him by his name. He looked ahead and there was no one there. He looked back where the gate was and he saw a man dressed in black with an ugly face. That's exactly how he told it. He wanted to run to the kitchen, but this person apparently grabbed him from behind and pushed him hard against the wall and he couldn't move. But the strange thing about all of this is that he said the man was watching him from that spot, which he was looking at and wouldn't let him leave. When my mom came in, the man was there. He saw him and swore that he was staring straight into his eyes, but my mom didn't see him at any moment. I have to clarify that my family was never religious and paranormal topics were not something they took into account. So my mom immediately explained to him that all of that was because of watching horror movies, that he shouldn't watch them, that it was all his imagination and that he shouldn't get so scared. My brother calmed down, but inside I think he knew that something was going on. In fact, that same afternoon during his birthday he got sick. He had a high fever until the next day. When he woke up, he felt better, but was acting strangely. Looking back at everything that happened, we all know that fever was a symptom and a sign of what was coming. To start, he stopped playing with his toy cars in the garage and lost interest in playing with anything else. He seemed sad or depressed. At school, the teacher called my parents' attention several times because he would get into fights and wouldn't listen at all. He always behaved well before this. No one imagined that would be the last year my brother would go to school. The episodes of fever, just out of nowhere, happened more and more often. Sometimes they lasted only a couple of hours and other times almost a whole day. It was months of going from doctor to doctor, but no one could find the reason for what was happening to him. It was at a major hospital in Buenos Aires where a nurse spoke with my old man and suggested to him that maybe what was happening to him wasn't something that medicine could solve. We don't know what he saw or why he said it, but he advised him to take him to the church of Lujan to bless him. Neither my brother nor I had been blessed when we were babies. My old man got really angry when he heard this from the nurse. They took my brother for treatment and approached him with religious matters. He didn't understand it. My mom says my dad made a huge scene, though I wasn't there. But beyond all that, the anger and fighting, seeing all kinds of doctors, all the time and everywhere. My brother stayed the same or got worse, he was skinnier and other situations started happening that were horrible. We slept in the same room and one night I woke up and I can't even explain the fear I felt. I saw my brother standing against the wall and speaking in a very low voice, whispering. I even think he laughed at one point. It was winter, but I swear the room was colder than usual, or at least I think it was. I called him and told him to go to bed. He kept talking and didn't answer me. I went to his side to take him to bed. He looked asleep, sleepwalking. I put my hand on his back and said his name. At that moment, he quickly turned his head, stared at me, and didn't say anything. He just did. It was a terrible feeling. That wasn't my brother. That look wasn't his, and even that sound didn't seem like his voice. I stepped back and called my father loudly. He came quickly and entered the room. My brother stared at me. Dad shook him awake, and he came to after a few seconds. Through all of this, he had peed himself standing there while he looked at me. It had already been a few months since my dad talked to the nurse. My mom doesn't remember how many, but these strange episodes were happening more and more often. Until one afternoon, something happened that made my parents question what they really believed in. Since that night, I've slept in the living room. My room felt strange, and I disliked being there with my brother. One afternoon, he was lying in the bedroom. I was at school, and my dad was at work. My mom heard a very loud bang, and when she went to my brother's room, she saw something terrible. Even though I didn't see it like she did, I swear I get goosebumps just imagining it. When she went in, she saw him standing in that corner he always went to. He was making some kind of monotone, very deep voice. And not only that, she saw him floating about 30 centimeters above the floor. My mom, when she saw that, shouted his name and swore at that moment, and she swears it to this day, that something pushed her in the chest out of the room. It was very difficult. My brother kept making the noise. She entered the room again, hugged him tightly, and managed to get him out. She called my dad to tell him everything that had happened. My old man, it seems, didn't doubt her words for a second. Since, as I said, the episodes that were happening were getting stronger and had no explanation. Noises could be heard around the house and some things would fall for no reason. My brother practically didn't remember what was happening during those moments. The only thing he felt was exhaustion throughout his whole body and a headache, but he couldn't explain why he did what he did. My parents talked and decided to go to Lujan to have my brother blessed. The day they were about to leave for the basilica, my brother had a fever and didn't want to go, but they forced him into the car and left for there. My mom told me that when they got to the church, my brother got very tense and nervous. He started screaming in the middle of the street and didn't want to go in. He was taken to the river to relax, while my father consulted a priest to clarify the situation. After some time, they forcibly brought him through the basilica's side entrance, as he remained reluctant and anxious to enter. In a kind of room, my brother was calmer and they talked with a priest. My mom told me it was a totally normal conversation. He didn't ask him anything about God or about any religion. He asked my brother what his name was, how he was doing in school, and what things he liked to do. You could say it was a casual conversation until he asked my dad to please talk somewhere else. And it was at that very moment that he gave his opinion. My brother had a serious issue. He didn't explain how he knew or why, but he was specific about it. If he isn't freed from it, this is going to consume him. They didn't baptize him that afternoon. They went back home processing what the priest had told them, and they had arranged to go again in 2 days so he could be properly baptized by another priest who wasn't there at the time. And so all of this would just be the beginning of a journey to help my brother. When they got back home, they talked, they told me what was happening, we were stunned. I was in disbelief, and my parents were equally perplexed about the situation. The craziest thing about all this, you know what, we never found out the reason, or rather the origin of this. Even now the question remains unanswered, as no one knows how to address it. My brother was baptized without any problem. Everyone expected his reaction to be aggressive or bad, but it turned out to be the opposite. He was super calm, and this really puzzled everyone. But the day after this ceremony, something very, very bad happened at home. And my mom still tears up today, just remembering it. She was washing the dishes. My brother was sitting at the table watching television I had left for school, and my dad was at work. At one point, my mom turned around and saw that the kitchen table was covered in blood. My brother was staring at a fixed point, as always, and not making a sound. He held scissors in his right hand and had cut his pinky finger. He nearly cut it off completely, but immediately called the neighbor to drive him to the hospital. They treated him quickly, saving his finger with only a slight loss of mobility. The worst part of all this is that he never made a sound of pain or cried. He was like in a trance, staring at nothing, and when my mom screamed, only then did he look at his finger and start crying. Later, he insisted that he hadn't done that. Anyway, our house was a horrible place, I mean it. It was awful to be inside, it felt strange and sad. Every other day something happened. It was either my brother or noises, things falling, arguments. By that time, my parents were convinced that my brother was possessed. What was the reason? Nobody knew. As a precaution, I was baptized in a nearby church, though I don't think this was related. I'm unsure why. That's my opinion. A priest from the area started coming to my house every week to bless each room and talk with all of us. My brother would get slightly tense every time he visited. We noticed it, despite him not doing much more. Something I haven't mentioned is that my brother always talked about that man who appeared to him in the garage. He mentioned many times that he wasn't bad and that he just wanted company. He was in the house and could see him in the mirrors almost all the time. None of us ever saw him. The atmosphere in the house was dreadful, and that couldn't be denied. My brother's condition deteriorated daily, exhibiting strange behavior, frequent fevers, and difficulty sleeping. We were at a loss for what to do. My parents were really exhausted. It was a February morning when my old man talked to his brother about what was happening and that nothing had improved, that everything was worse. My uncle begged him that we should go there, that we should sell everything and move to Spain. He lived in that country and he guaranteed him a job at his factory, and we could even settle in an apartment he had in Madrid. He asked him this because his mother-in-law, who had many contacts in the church, offered to help when she learned about the situation. But it would be much better to be there with my brother so he can be properly evaluated, so we can start his release process. After months of contemplation, they couldn't resist any longer. With the lease nearing its end, the timing was ideal. That's how, in June of that same year, we moved to Spain. We settled into this apartment located in the Atocha neighborhood. A lot of things happened during our stay in Madrid, but the most important thing is that my brother was finally taken care of by people from the church. I don't want to mention names or places out of respect, but the dedication of these people was complete, and we will always be grateful. My brother was possessed, and it was determined that it wasn't just one but several entities. At first, it was on more frequent days, but then the sessions became more spaced out until they saw him about every 20 days, where they performed a kind of exorcism on him. Sometimes it was done in the church, and other times at an address on the outskirts of Madrid. Out of all these rituals, I only witnessed one. My parents didn't want me to get involved because it was really unpleasant. They would tie my brother to a chair or a bed and start with the prayers. The day I witnessed it, I can't even explain what I felt when I saw that. My brother shook and screamed horribly, as if being hit but without physical contact. I also heard that sound my mom talked about when she found him floating in the room. I could only bear being there briefly before leaving. I never want to witness that again. In fact, since that day, every time I remember that moment, my hands start shaking and I can't help it. This went on for years. Yes, for years. My brother had ups and downs. There were times when he was normal. He even started school again, but after a few months he would fall back into the same thing, and always. He said that man followed him everywhere. In 2013 we moved into a house, and for certain reasons that aren't relevant, the sessions with the people from the church were suspended. My brother got much worse. The fever lasted for days, he was even hospitalized, but just like in Argentina, no one knew the reason for it. Like I said, he got worse. He was hardly lucid anymore, he barely spoke, and there were more and more moments when he just stared at that fixed point. As we used to say, what else? In 2014, I moved in with my girlfriend and finally had peace in my daily life. Every time I went to visit my parents and my brother, it was like being in that environment again, in that place where nothing was good. My parents were extremely depressed. At that time, a nun visited my brother quite often just as spiritual support for my parents. She knew very well that she couldn't do anything to free him. She herself said that not everyone is prepared for that. She asked them to take him to a church, I don't remember in which area, but my parents were tired. They had basically been in hell for 15 years and nothing was getting better. Early one morning, past 4 AM, my phone rang. It was my mom, calling from the hospital. My brother had gotten up without anyone knowing, grabbed a knife and cut part of his arms and his stomach. He had bled a lot, but luckily he was out of danger. You could say that moment was the peak of all this. It was something that no one could control, and it had become dangerous for everyone. The decision was made by all three of us. That same night at the hospital, we agreed that my brother needed to be admitted to a home for people with mental health issues, and that's what we did. From the hospital stretcher, he was transferred to an excellent facility upon discharge, where they would provide him with the best possible care. This was in 2017 and continues to this day. My brother is in this place. My parents visit him often, as well as a priest who is a very good friend of my uncle. The efforts to free my brother persist, but it appears he may no longer be alive. His body might not be his own anymore. This is my own personal opinion. As for me, I only went to see him a few times and it really hurt me. He doesn't talk, he doesn't look at you. Being near him feels strange. It pains me to admit it, but it's not like being beside my brother. He's a stranger, I don't know if he'll ever recover. I hope he does, that's what I want most. My parents were never the same as before. Yes, they're a little more cheerful, but they'll never get over the sadness. I think what we did was the right thing. I want to emphasize that this was never told, not even to our friends, neighbors, and even some family members don't know about it. But I know this isn't the only case. I know that many have suffered and are suffering similar situations. I've realized over this long time that there are forces far beyond our control. In fact, these are things we still don't understand, and neither science nor religion can control them. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. I look forward to your comment to know what you think about this incredible case. I send a big hug to all of you.